Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly special, an ancient map to inner peace, drawn from the Maharatnakuta Sutra. In this world that's just constantly buzzing with notifications, with endless to-do lists, have you ever just stopped and asked yourself, how can I find a moment of real inner silence? It feels like such a modern problem, right? But what's fascinating is that the search for an answer is incredibly ancient. And that's exactly the question that practices like the one we're about to explore were designed to answer thousands of years ago.
Okay, so here's our game plan. It's like we're climbing a ladder to inner quiet. First, we'll lay the foundation by guarding the senses. Then, we'll take a big step beyond desire. After that, we climb up through the four dhyanas and even higher into the four formless realms. And at the very top, we'll see the ultimate goal that makes sense of it all. So you ready? Let's start at the bottom with that first step.
All right, first things first, the foundation. And the idea here is really simple when you think about it. Before we can even begin to quiet down all that noise inside our heads, we've got to get a handle on the constant flood of stuff coming in from the outside.
So the big goal here, the state we're aiming for, has a name: Dhyana Paramita. It basically means the perfection of meditative concentration. Now, this is super important. This is not about just spacing out or turning your brain off. It's about developing a kind of focus that's, well, it's both incredibly calm and incredibly powerful at the same time. Imagine a mind that is totally still, but also sharp and brilliantly clear.
Okay, so how do we actually build this foundation? Well, the sutra talks about what it calls the six gates, and these are basically our senses, right? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and even the mind itself, which senses thoughts. Now, the core practice here involves a kind of discipline, what's known as jialut. But, and this is key, it's not about slamming those gates shut. It's about being a really good gatekeeper. You stand guard, you mindfully watch what comes and goes, but you don't get swept away by it. You don't chase after the good stuff or try to fight off the bad. You just observe. All right, so once we've got a bit of a handle on those gates, we're ready for the next big move. This is the first real step into stillness, going beyond desire. To do this, the sutra gives us some really powerful mental pictures to work with. It tells us to look at desire and see it as a skeleton, or like a torch that just burns you, or a dream that disappears the moment you wake up. Wow, this is a very practical technique of visualization, or guanxiang. And look, the point isn't to be morbid or depressing. These are tools, right? They're meant to help us see craving for what it really is. Not some promise of lasting happiness, but something that's actually pretty fleeting and, in the end, kind of unreliable. And when you start to see desire this way, it opens the door to what's called the first dhyana, the first level of deep meditative absorption. The process is pretty straightforward. First, you detach. You let go of all those distracting desires and thoughts. Next, you focus your mind, maybe on your breath. And then, you experience something amazing, a real sense of joy and pleasure that comes not from getting something you want, but from the very act of letting go. And that's the big secret here. This joy isn't something you have to hunt down. It just bubbles up naturally when you finally release your grip. So once you've had a taste of that first state, the climb really begins. We're now on the ladder of the four dhyanas. And what's so elegant about this is that each step up involves letting go of something from the step below it. It's a journey into deeper and deeper stillness. And you can see the whole progression right here. You start in the first dhyana, where you've still got some thought going on, along with that feeling of joy. But to get to the second dhyana, you let go of the thinking. And believe it or not, the joy actually gets deeper. Then, to reach the third, even that super intense joy starts to mellow out into this calm, mindful pleasure. You're just content. And then finally, the fourth dhyana. Here, you let go of everything, even the chasing of pleasure, and you land in this state of pure, rock-solid equanimity. You're just beyond pleasure and pain. Okay, so once the mind is totally steady in that fourth dhyana, this is where things get really interesting. The practice can actually move beyond the physical world as we know it. This is where we step into the four formless realms, the next stage of profound concentration, or samadhi. We're at the very top of the ladder now, and these states are, well, they're incredibly subtle. First, you go beyond any sense of a physical body or objects, and just rest in the feeling of infinite space. Then, you let even that go, and you move into infinite consciousness. Past that, the sphere of nothingness. And at the absolute peak, you reach a state that can barely be described, neither perception nor non-perception.
It's pretty mind-bending stuff. And altogether, these 4 plus the 4 dhyanas, that's your complete map of the 8 samadhis. So, we've climbed this incredible inner ladder, right, to the very heights of consciousness. But why? What's the point of all this? Is it just about getting some personal peace and quiet, a little escape? Well, no. This is where the whole practice reveals its true, profound purpose. The ultimate goal, a bodhisattva's vow. And the text is absolutely clear about this. This whole journey, all this intense training and fine-tuning of the mind, it is not just for you. It's not a solo mission. The whole thing is fueled by this huge, compassionate purpose that shifts your entire motivation from me to we. See, a bodhisattva is someone who says, I'm doing this for everyone. And that commitment, that vow, is the real heart of the practice. It's a vow to liberate all sentient beings, to attain all knowledge. Basically, to figure out how reality works so you can help others do the same. So the goal isn't to check out, it's to gain the inner strength and wisdom you need to actually show up and help. And you can imagine what a huge shift this is. When your why is that big and that compassionate, the practice itself totally changes. The sutra says it stops feeling like a chore and it becomes a joyful path. It's like this powerful motivation becomes the actual fuel for the journey. Your effort isn't a grind anymore, it's a happy expression of wanting to help. So, there you have it. We've gone all the way from the simple act of watching our senses to the most subtle states of mind you can imagine. And we've seen how the whole thing is powered by a vow of compassion. This ancient text has basically handed us a map. And that brings me to one last question for you to think about. If this is the map of our inner world, what new landscapes are just waiting for us to discover inside ourselves?